Hi, I'm Craig Head with the Nebraska Farm Bureau, and with me today is Nebraska Farm Bureau President Steve Nelson. Steve, today we're going to talk a little bit about the Nebraska Legislature. We're kind of getting to crunch time here with property taxes. Less than 10 days left, and one of the bills that's going to be on the floor coming up next week is LB 947. It's a bill that we're fully supporting. Let's talk a little bit about 947 and what it does.
Sure. Well, LB 947 is the bill that was introduced to the legislature by Senator Smith on behalf of Governor Ricketts. And the bill has changed a lot from when it was first introduced. And so it's important as we think about what LB 947 does that we remember that there's been many changes, and so the bill in its present form is much different than what was available at the time of the hearing. The bill maintains the present property tax credit fund. This is something that's been very important, and a lot of people wanted to see that stay in there, so that's in there. We also continue to retain the exemptions for personal property taxes that are very important, and there was some talk that might change, but that will not change. That's part of the bill. And then finally, of course, the bigger piece of it is the new refundable income tax credit portion of the bill, which will generate a significant amount of money over a period of time.
That refundable income tax credit starts at 2% on the agriculture side and then climbs up. Let's talk a little bit more about what that actually does.
Sure, and these are some of the things that have changed from the time that the bill was introduced, but the first 2% applies in 2018, and then add 2 percentage points per year for 10 years up to 20% income tax credit refund, and this is on top of the property tax credit fund, which is already there. So this amounts to some pretty significant dollars over a period of time, and everyone knows the amount of property tax you're paying today. And while that might change, you can use that 20% calculation as you think about where this ends up, and it would, even if property taxes go up, that it's still 20% of that number, still that percentage times that larger number. So actually the amount of property tax relief will grow as property taxes might grow. We hope that doesn't happen. But in the end, this provides some really meaningful property tax relief, and I think that's one of the key reasons that we're so supportive of the bill.
And if I remember right, it's about $285 million of new property tax relief. And you mentioned the property tax credit fund. That's about $105 million that we get today. So a significant increase over what we get today in property tax relief.
You know, there's other options that have been talked about this year. This really totals up to be more dollars than the other options that were there, whether that's the ballot option or whether that's some of the other things that were talked about. So I think, again, to keep this in context, and I know we're in this context of we wish it was more sooner, but it's still significant property tax relief, and in the end it's not, it's really slightly more than the other ideas that are out there.
Steve, you mentioned the ballot. In Nebraska Farm Bureau, we've made a substantial financial investment in the ballot initiative and time and resources in helping that move forward. We did talk about the fact that should LB 947 cross the finish line and that tax relief would be delivered, the Nebraska Farm Bureau would possibly pull away its support for the ballot measure. Maybe talk about that, because that may have gotten some people's attention on what we meant by that.
Sure, and I think the first thing that it's important to remember is that we have not backed away from the ballot initiative today. We are as committed to the ballot initiative as we've ever been, and signatures are being collected as we speak. So the ballot measure is moving forward. What we've said is that if LB 947 passes, and that would be at the very minimum with the things in the bill that we've talked about, that then we would focus our efforts on the real crux of the problem, which is how we fund schools in the state of Nebraska. And really none of the measures that are out there address that issue directly. The ballot initiative doesn't address that issue directly either. And so we believe, of course, that's where real reform would be, real change needs to be made. And so we will focus our effort on finding more equitable, more fair ways to fund schools in the state of Nebraska. And I really think that can happen, and maybe we're in a better position for that to happen once LB 947 passes than we would be without that.
we'll see as we talk. There's a long way to go for either LB 947 and the ballot measure, and the clock's ticking certainly on the legislative solution or legislative issue of the problem. But right now, with the legislature closing out, it's important that people talk to their state senators right now, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is, and I'm sure it seems confusing when we say we have a long ways to go and we're talking about less than 10 days left in the legislature. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's unfortunate that it's gotten pushed back this far. An issue that's as important as this would have a better discussion if we had more time, but we don't have more time. And so it's important, again, that we get something done this year. LB 947 is a step in the right direction. It gets us on the path towards increasing the amount of property tax relief that's there. And so it is more important than ever that you tell your senator how important property tax relief is to you, and that LB 947 is a great method of getting started down the path of property tax relief that we need so much in agriculture today.
Thank you, Steve, for the update. We appreciate that. We can help you here at Nebraska Farm Bureau make that contact with your state senator. Visit nefb.org and click the Take Action button to help you get in contact with your state senator to show your support for LB 947.